Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théères, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
We really don't have much. We know what's public, but we don't have a real idea of what the 17 attorneys working for Robert Mueller have learned, have confirmed.
We do not, but we know that the advice that the president's lawyers gave him in August, that this will be over by Thanksgiving, is absolutely untrue. Here it is Christmas, and it's ratcheting up. We also know that there have been no denials to the Washington Post reports this morning that this is likely to go through 2018. And we also know that Bob Mueller and team are meeting with the president's lawyers at the end of this week. We don't know what they're going to say.
Who, based on the evidence, based on what's happened, who's in the line of fire now? Jared Kushner?
Jared Kushner's in the line of fire. Donald Trump Jr. is in the line of fire. And, of course, the president's in the line of fire. We don't know what Bob Mueller has. I am critical of a lot of our colleagues who say there's no there there. You know what, Shep? This is a jigsaw puzzle with 100,000 pieces. And we see a piece here and a piece there, and everybody's like, it doesn't make any sense. They're not connected. It takes time to amass all these evidence, all these pieces of evidence, so that we see the jigsaw puzzle completed. And that's what Mueller and company are trying to do.
Indictments and confessions.
Yes.
We've had thus far.
Yes. Look, General Flynn was exposed to 60 years in jail. He had been convicted of every charge that was out there, and he'd been sentenced to the max. He's now exposed to 6 months. How did he go from 60 years down to 6 months? He must have given them something. We won't find out what that is until we get to that point in the investigation.
But they know.
Bob Mueller knows. We don't.
It is Wednesday, December 20th of 2017, and you are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Indeed, the doors are now open. It is Smothered Benedict Wednesdays, our daily special, which is, I should say, apropos since one Cardinal Bernard Law has gone to that great beyond. I checked, and there's no reportage yet on the outcome of the discussion at the pearly gates, though I can surmise, and maybe you can too, where one Cardinal Bernard Law will be directed to spend the rest of all eternity, if you believe in that cosmology. And even if you don't, he was a odious, despicable man, and if there is a hell, he should be residing there for all eternity. I guess that's called retribution for, a life ill-lived. Hey, I don't normally care to include anything that might be produced by Fox News, but I couldn't help but include Shepard Smith and Judge Napolitano's taking down Fox News for lying about the Russia probe, considering that they are Fox News personalities. And from the lion's den, as they say. So good on them. And now if we could just get some Republican members of Congress to call out their fellows yeah, fellows, to, maybe think about being more American and less the greedy, power-grabbing bastards that they are. So, okay. All sorts of other news that have happened, but, I should mention off the top rather than do it towards the end of the show. If you go to netrootsradio.com, that of course is our homepage, scroll down to the bottom of the page, to the right-ish is the chat room link, and you can leave messages, and Kelly, our roaring girl, does monitor the chat room quite frequently during the day. And so you can communicate with us that way until, and I should have the Skype protocols fixed so that I will be doing live interviews once again. So bear with us on that. But I should also mention that you can get a hold of me, Justice Putnam, at Justice Putnam on Twitter. And you can also find me as Justice Putnam on Daily Kos. And I should also mention, it is my real name. I didn't make it up. The most important part of this little ditty that I'm doing right now is that to the leftish of that chat room link that Roaring Girl Kelly monitors is the donate contribute buttons. And that is pretty darn important in this season of giving and sharing, because with your generosity, we have been paying our bills. And paying your bills is a very important part of being an American, I say. So we thank you tremendously for that. Let's see here. Why don't I get into what's on the menu for Smothered Benedict Wednesdays? Well, we will examine here in the front cafe. We will examine the FBI investigation into the mysterious $30 million missing from the Oklahoma Health Department. What's up with Oklahoma? You know, Scott Pruitt, EPA director. He comes from Oklahoma. In fact, he might still be there now. Let's see. Trump's national security strategy makes for some sad reading by European governments. And China's flagship television network still is not registered as a foreign agent. And then, of course, after the break, we move to the chef's table. And today we're going to have a discussion on how industrial polluters are using racketeering laws to silence environmental activists. And astronomers at the International Space Station, for the first time, have successfully sequenced the genes of 3 previously unknown organisms and correctly identified them. So why won't they tell us what they are? All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. All right, as we get settled in here in the front cafe, I should also mention the GOP tax scam, the revenue giveaway to the upper crust. And I'm just mentioning it because they had to pass it in the dead of night. And how many years? I mean, they've been trying to do this since Reagan. And they still got it wrong and got to get a revote because it violates Senate rules. Well, we know how rules are attended to in both houses when the Republicans are in charge. So, well, you'll get a tax hike. Oh, you think you're getting a little tax cut with your measly $20. Oh, yes, I know. But Rachel Maddow showed that chart about income inequality. You know, what we think it is, what we wish it would be, and what it really is. And what we wish it would be and what it really is, oh, my God. I don't know about you. I kind of feel that I live a rich life because of, a certain level of education and inquiry. But But monetarily, I looked at that chart and I didn't even make the chart. So I'm right off the edge there. I fell off the flat edge of that graph with really millions of other people too. So I guess we really don't count because we don't hold any of the wealth. Good thing too, because what would we do? I don't know about you. The first thing that I go spend my money on is not booze, women, and movies. And not in that order either, if I were to spend it on such trivial concerns. Nope. Maybe I'd want to buy that Dijon mustard I've been saving up for, so I can then buy the avocado I've been saving up for some really expensive hipster toast that I've been saving up for. Because, we save up for that stuff, then we get it. Oh, my God. Okay, well, let's get into these first articles that we have here in the front cafe. So, Oklahoma. They can't figure out how to fill a $900 million budget hole. And how did that budget hole occur? Just, spontaneously occurred with no input from human endeavor? No, there was great human endeavor, if you consider Republicans to be human. This is by the great Sarah K. Burris out of Raw Story. Somehow, $30 million disappeared from the Oklahoma Department of Public Health. The news comes at a time when the Oklahoma legislature has not been able to pass a budget to account for a nearly $900 million budget hole. The state has seen a string of resignations over the last month since the news broke about the accounting tricks used to give the illusion of a balanced budget. Okay, Tuesday, that was yesterday, by the way, the FBI announced that it would be investigating the department and those involved in making the decisions that led to the disappearance of the funds. Resignations. So are they going home to spend more time with their money and family? Offshore in the Cayman Islands, maybe. Maybe they were just anticipating, this tax scam that the GOP is putting up, which actually encourages people with the most money to leave the country with their money and take their jobs with them too if they got them. From what I've been able to tell, you can pay a dividend to anywhere, from anywhere in the world, as far as I can tell. So they might as well take it offshore. Why live in this carnage? I appreciate the collaboration of the FBI and HHS in ensuring that we can conduct a thorough and exacting review of the situation at the Oklahoma State Department of Health. Attorney General Mike Hunter said in a statement, "We will get to the bottom of what happened here." Yeah, we know exactly what happened here, Mike. In the wake of the announcement of the error, the Department of Health asked the legislature to give them $30 million so they could continue to lay off staff and pay existing vendor contracts. Can't account. They can't find $30 million. But give us $30 million so we can continue firing people and pay off. Well, they got to pay off the contractors. I understand that. But I love they need money to fire people. I guess those are severance packages maybe. But still. They're not going to need the $30 million to pay for staff to make sure that lead is not in little kitties' Skittles, let alone their water. Governor Mary Fallon's top staffers, she's a Republican, of course, as they all are, were subpoenaed to testify before a state House committee for their investigation. However, Republican State Representative Josh Cockcroft explained his committee's investigation isn't criminal in nature. A multi-county grand jury has also been called. I don't know, sounds criminal to me. According to Oklahoma Watch, there were watchdogs in place who should have caught the error. The state auditor and inspector's office does operational audits, performance audits, and investigative audits on state agencies, cities, boards, councils, and commissions. Many are aggressive and detailed, the report by Oklahoma Watch read. The Office of Management similarly has budget analysts and a state comptroller who monitor the department. The State Board of Health also has a finance committee which oversees all of the department's budget decisions, yet none caught the $30 million missing from funds that stacked up over time. Okay, go Oklahoma. The sooner you do, the sooner you don't. Next course up here in the front cafe at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy for Smothered Benedict Wednesdays has a purposely designed European flavor because, the Europeans know how to read Trump. His foreign policy strategy report that was issued here Monday and yesterday, Tuesday, gave some passing acceptance that Europe is a vital ally with the U.S. But, like I said, the Europeans know how to read Trump. This is by Andrew Napolitano out of the EU Observer. Europe is a vital ally in its rivalry with China and Russia, according to Donald Trump's geopolitics. But the U.S. President's America First vision is anti-European on climate change and reduces the EU to a footnote. Trump's ideas were laid out in a national security strategy which said a strong and free Europe is of vital importance to the United States. The United States is safer when Europe is prosperous and stable and help defend our shared interests. The paper designated the revisionist powers of China and Russia as the main threats to U.S. supremacy. Wow. This is us. This is us telling the world, America first. And you better believe it. Believe me. And the report, Trump's report, continued, said that the Chinese military seeks to displace the United States in the Indo-Pacific region. Indo-Pacific. And that Russia seeks to restore its great power status and establish spheres of influence near its borders. Now, that could be construed as not necessarily an indictment against Russia. It could be just a matter of fact. See, when they write these reports, instead of reading them out, you don't get the inflections, the real meaning. So it could also say, yeah, way to go, Russia. Take over more borders. We're behind you. It noted that China was using state investments to gain a strategic foothold in Central and Eastern Europe, Latin America, and Africa. In all the places that Trump wants to build hotels, except maybe Africa. It also said Russia was using subversive measures to weaken the credibility of America's commitment to Europe, undermine transatlantic unity, and weaken European institutions and governments. With its invasions of Georgia and Ukraine, Russia demonstrated its willingness to violate the sovereignty of states in the region, it said. The report. This is Trump's report. Did Trump see this? I think he's going to. No wonder he's been mad the last couple of days. Russia, too, projects its influence through the control of key energy and other infrastructure throughout parts of Europe, Trump's geopolitics report added. In response, the Trump document said the United States and Europe will work together to counter Russian subversion and aggression. All right. The NATO alliance of free and sovereign states is one of our great advantages over our competitors, and the United States remains committed to Article 5 of the Washington Treaty, it added. referring to NATO's Mutual Defense Clause. No wonder they didn't have Trump read this out, because he would have just ad-libbed and dropped the Article 5 commitment, like he did the last time. We will work with our allies and partners to diversify European energy sources to ensure the energy security of European countries, it said. I think what they're saying is that they're going to try to drill in the North Sea and have a war with the Russians over it. U.S. officials wrote the 68-page paper over the last 11 months based on Trump's public statements. Trump, in a break from normal practice, launched it with a speech on Monday, standing beside a fighter jet and a giant American flag. Über alles. From this day forward, it's going to be only America first, he said, repeating his campaign slogan. America is coming back strong. Hey, Don, we never left. Freaking idiot. The Chinese Foreign Ministry reacted in wounded tones on Tuesday, saying, "We urge the U.S. to stop intentionally distorting China's strategic intentions and to abandon the Cold War mentality." Indeed. The Kremlin bemoaned the imperialist character of Trump's unipopular worldview, and why wouldn't Russia? Because they have the same. Just listen to Vlad. But parts of the document might also make sad reading for European governments. The paper excluded any mention of climate change as a U.S. priority in a blow to EU efforts to lead world action on global warming. Well, they did talk about energy. We just, look, things got to burn. And if it messes up the atmosphere, well, that's what God intended. Okay, we're all going to be judged sooner or later. And my constituents would really like it to be sooner. So come on, get on board. We'll make a bunch of money before the whole thing goes up in flames. Europeans say, no, we have a much longer historical worldview than you adolescents over there in the U.S. Boy, how many times did I hear that when I traveled in Europe? Okay, instead it said Trump wanted the U.S. to be an energy-dominant nation by unleashing abundant energy resources. Well, they're going to try to drill the North Sea and kick the Russians out and have a little, naval war there, maybe. Or maybe Tillerson and Trump are going to fulfill the contract that was originally made with Rostov. And, have a dual team of Russians and U.S. interests drilling the North Sea. And then they can have a war against all the pirate nations up there too, like Norway. It also described climate policies as an anti-growth energy agenda that is detrimental to U.S. economic and energy security interests. Oh, my God. The paper called Europe America's most significant trading partner, but its bulky economic section focused on combating unfair foreign trade practices and on rebuilding U.S. economic strength. Wow. Now, what was the crash course, the tutorial that Tillerson needed? Treat your allies better than your adversaries. I guess these government functionaries in Trump's administration didn't get the memo. Commenting on the text, Carl Bildt, a former Swedish foreign minister who works with the European Council on Foreign Relations, which is a think tank in London, said that the previous U.S. national security strategy in 2015 focused on a rules-based international order. That concept is totally absent from the new document. Well, of course, because rule-based international order was advocated by the black guy, so it must have been wrong. Trump knows that. The rule of law, the black guy was an advocate of the rule of law. Well, I am the perfect person to change that idea, Trump says, over and over and over. And he is, too. He's a crook. The Trump paper argues that sovereign states competing with each other is the best hope for a peaceful world. It can be argued that history speaks otherwise. Well, yeah, the Europeans have a much longer historical worldview. They've been there before, many times. I mean, look how much happened before the Magna Carta. Think of that. And then they got together with the Magna Carta thinking, maybe we'll, have some order here, some compromise. Let's be neighbors. Of course, this sovereign states competing with each other is this libertarian attitude about a team of rivals. Makes for, a better government. No, it doesn't. Makes for better backstabbing. Dmitry Trenin, a Russia expert with the Carnegie Europe think tank in Moscow, said the Trump doctrine recognizes the reality of return of great power rivalry and the demise of Pax Americana. The document is realist rather than isolationist. See, it just depends on how you're reading it. Because you're not hearing the inflection of the voice. Russians think it's just matter of fact. Oh, yeah. We're going on other people's borders, so what? And the demise of Pax Americana. Well, the paper's omissions on climate and multilateralism aside, it also said nothing explicit on Russia's help in getting Trump elected last year. It warned that Russia uses information operations as part of its offensive cyber efforts to influence public opinion across the globe. Its influence campaigns blend covert intelligence operations and false online personas with state-funded media, third-party intermediaries, and paid social media users or trolls. Those words describe what Russia did to help Trump win, amid an ongoing probe by the FBI into whether he colluded with Moscow to do it. Yeah, well. Once again, there's been a file on Trump since he first started trying to do business dealings with the failing Soviet Union. Okay? Let's be clear. All right, this last course here at the front table on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy has a little bit of sweet and sour. Now, that's not meant to be anything patronizing, but I'm well aware of American tastes. All right? Gotta have the sweet and sour. So, here's a little sweet and sour for you out of foreign policy with Bethany Allen Abramian and Elias Grohl penning this article. Ongoing investigations into Russian meddling in the 2016 U.S. presidential election have led to increased scrutiny of foreign outlets operating in the U.S. Justice Department recently ordered RT, the Russian state-backed English language news, to register as a foreign agent under the Foreign Agents Registration Act. But one of China's biggest government-controlled news outlets has not registered its Washington operation as a foreign agent. In 2012, China's Central Television, CCTV, the Chinese state broadcaster, launched an English language affiliate headquartered in Washington, D.C., CCTV America, recently rebranded as CGTN, because I think CCTV sounds like closed-circuit TV. Okay, and that company has been described as an attempt by China to spread its soft power globally. Oh, is it like Radio Free Europe? Radio Free America? Could they? No, I think it's something a little bit more. Its coverage of U.S. domestic issues is professional and not clearly slanted in one direction or another, but any China-related reporters strictly follow Chinese Communist Party media guidelines, presenting China as a positive, peaceful force whose geopolitical interests are righteous. Well, sounds to me like they're taking the Fox model. For example, in July of 2016, China's island building in the contested South China Sea came under international scrutiny when a Hague-based international tribunal ruled against most of Beijing's claims there. You know what they're doing? They're actually building islands to extend their sovereign maritime border. You know, normally it's 12 miles, but if you have some property out there, you know, like actual spits of land, it extends it another 12 miles. Though I will say most nations go to the 30-plus limit when they're laying claim to their borders. So let's see. Washington has also argued Beijing to follow international law with respect to the disputed waterway after the court issued its ruling. CGT in America referred to the ruling as a so-called award and presented the U.S. position as hypocritical and aimed at containing China. Oh, wow. Let's see. Press freedom organizations have decried the registration requirement, arguing that it gives an excuse for authoritarian regimes to crack down on speech. We're uncomfortable with governments deciding what constitutes journalism or propaganda, as said Alexander Ellerbeck, North America Program Coordinator for the Committee to Protect Journalists. I don't know. Maybe there might be some self-governing by other journalists. I wonder what that would be. What would that organization be called? All right. It's unclear why the Department of Justice has not yet directed CGTN America to register. The Department of Justice is committed to enforcing the Foreign Agents Registration Act vigorously to ensure that Americans understand who is acting to influence the U.S. government or public on behalf of a foreign principal. Department of Justice spokesman Wynne Hornbuckle said in a statement to Foreign Policy, "When we learn any person or organization, including a media organization and regardless of any particular nationality, is engaged in activities within the scope of the statute, the department will take necessary and appropriate measures to ensure compliance with the law." Unless Jeff Sessions has been paid off by separate bank intermediaries. I mean, it could always be. You never know. All right, let's get to our break, and then we'll come back and have a further discussion at the chef's table. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Solidarity News on Radio Labour.
This is a Radio Labour report recorded on Tuesday, December 19th, 2017. I'm Mark Boulanger. Labour organizations around the world commemorated International Migrants' Day on December 18th to fight for the rights of migrant workers. There are about 232 million migrants in the world. One of the labour organizations which used the day to renew its efforts to support migrants was the European Trade Union Confederation. The ETUC represents some 45 million workers in 39 countries. Liena Carr is the ETUC's Federal Secretary. She released a video on International Migrants' Day.
On this special occasion, I renew our commitment to support undocumented workers' rights. The ETUC expresses solidarity with all migrants and is thankful to Europeans who, saving lives at sea, keep our common values high. It is time for our politicians to take real action to stop the inhumane treatment of migrants by criminals in refugee camps. We need to work together to create opportunities for migrant workers to become part of our labour markets and societies. Labour inclusion and access to rights is key to ensuring dignity for those who settle and work in Europe. Recruiting and organising migrant workers, whether documented or undocumented, is vital for the rights and conditions of all working people. Only a united workers' movement that protects everyone and fights for everyone will be strong enough to succeed.
Fighting the use of offshore tax havens is one of Labor's most important battles because the lost tax revenue could pay for decent public services and wages. So imagine the surprise of people at the Canadian Labour Congress this week when they found out that the pension funds of 25 million workers in the country have used tax havens. The news that tax havens have been used by the pension funds came from an analysis of the Paradise Papers, which showed how corporations and other organizations are using countries such as Bermuda to avoid paying taxes. The problem in this case is not that the pension funds are avoiding taxes in Canada. In Canada, pension funds do not pay taxes on their investment income. The funds are using the tax havens to avoid paying taxes in the countries where they are making investments. This further legitimizes the use of tax havens, which are stealing billions of dollars in tax revenue from countries all around the world. Hassan Yousaf is the president of the Canadian Labour Congress, the CLC.
It's really an affront to the members who expect the pension plan investment arm to operate in an ethical way. This is not the reality, and politicians should be absolutely outraged that this is happening.
The Canadian pension funds involved in the use of offshore tax havens include the National Pension Plan, the Ontario Teachers' Pension Plan, the Ontario Municipal Employees Retirement System, and the Public Sector Pension Investment Board. Labor organizations are doing their best to publicize the misuse of tax havens. One of those organizations is Public Services International. The PSI represents 20 million workers who are members of 700 unions in 154 countries. It has been conducting a campaign to help more people understand that global regulations and investment rules, plus corporate greed, are allowing billions to be stolen from economically poor countries all over the world. As part of its global campaign for tax justice, the PSI has released a report about corporations and how they steal money from the poor. You can find out more about the PSI campaign for tax justice by visiting its website at www.world-psi.org. And that's it. International labor news you can use. Radio Labor's newscasts are available on its website, iTunes, mobile phones, union websites, and community radio stations. Follow us on Twitter at Radio Labor. I'm Mark Boulanger. Thank you for listening. And remember, it's all about global solidarity.
Food corporations and their academic cohorts keep trying to make an industrial tomato to rival Mother Nature's product. And they keep failing. They might consider this instead, the Rutgers 250. It's a revived version of the classic hybrid tomato bred in 1934 by Rutgers University and Campbell Soup. Its excellent flavor and texture made the Rutgers variety the tomato of choice for years, eventually accounting for 60% of all tomatoes grown commercially in the U.S. But it fell out of favor in the 1960s when big industrial growers in California and Florida switched to hard and tasteless tomatoes bred to withstand the crushing power of the harvesting machines they had begun using. The Rutgers variety soon disappeared from grocery bins and was forgotten until 2009. That year, with the good food movement mushrooming and with consumers demanding that supermarkets sell truly flavorful tomatoes, plant breeders discovered that Campbell still had genetic material from the parent plants used 75 years earlier to develop the original Rutgers variety. So, for 8 years, they've been working with it again, using crossbreeding techniques that go back to Latin America's pre-Columbian natives. Slowly but surely, they brought back the Rutgers and its natural flavor, glowingly described as, quote, the very taste of summer. The resurrected Rutgers is not hard enough to be machine harvested and shipped across country, which is one of its major virtues. The fact that this tomato must be grown and marketed regionally is one step toward a decentralized, deindustrialized, and better food economy. This is Jim Hightower saying, instead of trying to squeeze nature into a high-tech corporate model, This tomato represents an understanding that our food system can and should cooperate with nature and foster the growth of regional economies.
Need an antidote to the progressive blues? Want some good news about how grassroots folks are rebelling against the corporate powers and winning? Well, here's an easy-to-swallow pill for you, the Hightower Lowdown. Hightower's monthly newsletter will give you the lowdown, even as it lifts you up. It's 4 pages a month, jam-packed with facts you can use, actions you can take, and Jim's own Texas humor, all for only $15 a year. To become a lowdowner, go to hightowerlowdown.org.
From New York, this is your World in 2 Minutes. I'm your host, Luke Vargas, for Talk Media News. For the second time in 2 months, Saudi Arabia says it's intercepted a missile fired by Iranian-backed rebels in Yemen. The missile reportedly traveled hundreds of miles from Yemen toward the Saudi capital of Riyadh before being destroyed. The U.S. and Saudi Arabia accuse Iran of providing Yemen's Houthi rebels with long-range missile technology, evidence, they say, of Iran's intent to destabilize the Middle East. That U.S. campaign against Iran appears to have a new ally, France. Foreign Minister Jean-Yves Le Drian said on Monday that France is increasingly concerned with Iran's ballistic missile technology, and he didn't rule out the possibility of imposing new sanctions on Iran over its behavior. But while the Trump administration may have found another partner willing to publicly condemn Iran, French officials have repeatedly said they wish to keep a 2015 nuclear deal in place, something President Trump has not yet committed to. And speaking of missiles and missile defense, Japan has now agreed to acquire a pair of American-made missile defense systems in an effort to defend against North Korea. Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's government had been eyeing a number of U.S.-made missile defense systems, but settled on Lockheed Martin's Aegis Ashore system because of its cost and wide geographic range. The 2 onshore missile defense sites are estimated to cost over $1.5 billion, but will reportedly be able to protect all of Japan's mainland. Thanks to a pacifist post-war constitution, Japan's military has long lagged behind its peers in the Asia-Pacific, but that's changed in recent years as Prime Minister Abe allocated more money for national defense and has sought to modify the Japanese constitution to give the country greater ability to assist its allies in the event of conflict. For more global news headlines, visit TalkMediaNews.com.
Okay, thank you for your patience as we broke down the front cafe and deftly disguised it as just a sedate, but rather a refined cookbook store, because where the real fun is at the chef's table. That's where the speakeasy, folks. It's where we can let our hair down, so to speak. Look, there's no hair in the food, though the topics may be a little hairy if you really look at the ingredients. But regardless, this is where we let it all hang out and imbibe a little bit virtually. Alrighty. Let's see. How about a palate cleanser? And at this point of the show, it's the weather. And so here along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon, it is currently 33 degrees, raining. We have a forecast of snow, but we have a high of 43. It is, I can attest that it is snowing like the Dickens. They say that out here in the West. It's snowing like the Dickens in the passes and at altitude. But where I'm at right now, it's raining, and the ground likes it, and I think that's fine. I have to be out and about today, and I'd prefer not having snow and ice. So I think I'll just have to deal with ice. I think that will be the case, because in the shadowy areas, for those of you who may be new to driving in weather, in the shadowy areas on a cold day, that might be where the ice is. So take care. Turn into the slide. Turn into the slide. Okay, so we're, like I said, we're going to have a high of 43, rain or snow all day. Low tonight of 24. And if we do get any precipitation, it will be the snowy kind. Winds will be light and variable tonight, though today they will be out of the west-southwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Currently, they're out of the south-southwest around 3 miles per hour. So no data on air quality currently. Visibility is, of course, down to 6 miles. Pressure is has come down a little bit, 30.11 inches, and humidity is at 88%. All right, so weather from around the world. Oh, I forgot to mention, in spite of all that forecast, we remain under a winter weather advisory and warning, both of them at the same time. Okay, weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they have purchased, and these people live around the world. London is 52 and overcast. Paris is 47 and overcast. Rome is 41 and clear, under a wind advisory, which could knock out infrastructure. And that's been going on for a few days for them. Kiev is 30 degrees and overcast. Kabul is 53 with haze. Hong Kong, 59 degrees and clear. Tokyo is 41 degrees and clear. Sydney, Australia is 69 degrees and partly cloudy. San Francisco, California is 48 degrees and clear. And New York, New York is 43 degrees Fahrenheit and overcast. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased, and these people live around the world. Okay, industrial polluters have a chilling new weapon against environmental activists. I wouldn't say it's very new necessarily. And it has been used, though, very infrequently, and hasn't gone very far in lower courts. But it is being used with abandon now. And this is out of Alternet by Robin Scher. Sure. In this insane post-truth world of ours, it is becoming increasingly hard to separate fact from fiction. As a result, we have presidents who comfortably refute scientific thought and legitimate media news sources categorized as fake news. The problem boils down to profit and the old cliched formula, money equals power. Need another example? Look no further than the current legal war being waged against environmental activists. The standoff over the controversial Dakota Access Pipeline made national headlines earlier this year, in large part thanks to grassroots organizations working together with larger environmental advocacy groups. But of these efforts, millions of people were made aware of the potential hazard of this project, which helped bring construction of the pipeline to a temporary standstill. In other words, these actions had an impact. The protest proved so effective, in fact, oil companies have started to pursue their own strategy for countering this sort of activism: litigation. In the old days, they just brought out the goons with clubs and beat the crap out of you. Now they're going to do it with a pen. Now that's called advancing our societal evolution. Maybe somebody would say that. This past August, Energy Transfer Partners, the company responsible for the Dakota Pipeline, filed a suit against Greenpeace, BankTrack, and Earth First under the auspices of RICO, a federal conspiracy law geared toward clamping down on racketeering. Now, I will say that Earth First has been notorious for quite a while, and various forms of racketeering laws have been imposed against them. I will just say. But Greenpeace? What's next? Sierra Club? Oops, shouldn't have said it. The suit alleges that these groups were involved in an illegal enterprise aimed at furthering their interests at the expense of the company. Remember when Oprah got sued by the Beef Council in Texas because she reported on mad cow disease that was occurring in England? And by her mere mentioning of it, they determined that they would lose, some sort of profit, like, a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a cent and a quarter. on their bottom line, and that was just too much, and so they sued her. And, of course, it got thrown out of court. Just saying. Okay. Adding further insult to injury, the suit also claims that Greenpeace and others violated the terms of the Patriot Act by supporting acts of eco-terrorism and drug trafficking. Yeah. Now, this is before the pedophilia fear, okay? If they had waited just a few months, from August until just a few months, they could have tacked that one on too, because, it works in their rhetoric. That's how they work. Michael Girard, faculty director of climate change law at Columbia University, said that the Energy Transfer Partners lawsuit against Greenpeace is perhaps the most aggressive slap-type suit he had ever seen, referring here to the legal acronym for lawsuits that attempt to silence political advocacy. SLAP standing for Strategic Lawsuit Against Public Participation. Sounds democratic. A representative democratic republic. This is one of the institutions of it. Want to participate in it? You'll be sued. Okay. Well, look, for a reaction, there is a reaction. It's just the way the universe works. Gerard added that the paper practically bursts into flames in your hands. Wow. I want to see that movie. Could have like Julia Roberts, investigating these slap lawsuits in a down and out law firm out in the valley on a hot day. As for sensational misinformation, in 2012, Greenpeace Canada released a report claiming that the logging company was operating in a protected section of the boreal forest. This claim turned out to be false, and Greenpeace issued an apology and retracted its material on the matter. So therefore, they lied, get sued. This is the problem. When you admit a mistake, that shows apparent weakness in their lizard brains on the other side, and then they attack you for, everything you believe in is now suspect and wrong. Another damaging aspect of these lawsuits is the effect they could potentially have on the protest strategies used by groups such as Greenpeace. Central to the success of Greenpeace has been their high-profile antics, said Kusinets, who listened as examples the time the group sent protesters dressed as chickens to McDonald's franchises in London to protest logging in the Amazon, deftly mimicked a Dove soap public service announcement in Canada to link its parent company, Unilever, to deforestation in Indonesia, and dropped banners across the front of Procter & Gamble's corporate headquarters for its sourcing of palm oil. Well, obviously that's a conspiracy by criminal actors that must not stand. I don't care how much the rug brought the room together. Come on. The Energy Transfer Partners lawsuit explicitly refers to these tactics as the Greenpeace model. Yeah. Street theater, go to jail. You could perform like in the Prison Review every Christmas. We'll wear a hat. By creating a legal grounding for how this model equates to a form of racketeering, these suits could greatly undermine the efficacy of this strategy in the future. I don't really think it's about the money, Tom Orderer, Greenpeace's general counsel, said. I think they have to realize that their claims are not strong, that it's the process that they're really focused on, regardless of the end. It's really a means to drag us through the legal process, and that's what it is. It's goons coming out with a club, beating you up, saying, shut up, or pay the consequences. All right. Well, I know a resolution to this, but it really does require that we all go and vote in mass numbers. Will we, please? Let's do it. All right. The last course here at the chef's table is by Melissa Matthews out of Newsweek. Astronomers at the International Space Station successfully sequenced the genes of 3 unknown organisms and correctly identified them without sending the samples back to the Earth. The work, part of a project known as Genes in Space 3, makes identifying life on foreign planets through their DNA and treating sick astronauts aboard the space station closer to reality. The process was not easy, but scientists cracked the code by separating out DNA and making copies that could be studied. This information was then used to determine the genetic makeup of the sample so scientists could correctly determine what the unknown microbes were. Okay, I'm interested. All right, I'll keep reading then. The research took place entirely on the orbiting lab and came together in 2 separate processes. First, NASA astronaut Peggy Whitson and her team collected microorganisms. Then, they created multiple samples using a process known as polymerase. And Yuri is going to kill me because he's the chemist here at Netroots Radio. Polymerase chain reaction. This common technique involves making new DNA strands from old ones in order to produce potentially billions of copies of a particular section of DNA. Using their sample, scientists then transferred bacteria colonies from petri dishes into test tubes. A first for researchers in space. Yeah, have you ever seen them try to drink Tang without the bottle? They just put the globs out there and they're trying to suck it up out of space. Imagine trying to get that into a test tube. Okay. They sequenced DNA to determine the exact order of nucleotides, the genetic building blocks of each. This information allowed the scientists to identify the organisms which were previously unknown. Okay, I'm going to keep reading. Maybe they're going to tell me. As NASA explained in their original announcement in April, the success was attributed to combining 2 techniques that were not previously used together. And so they used a device that allowed the team to duplicate samples and then a handheld machine that sequenced the DNA. Oh, that's cool. Okay. Making the research even more significant is that the team performed the feat during Hurricane Harvey. They were I'm sorry. I missed a paragraph. Let me just say that when the coupling of these different devices is allowing the astronauts to take the lab to the samples instead of them having to bring the samples to the lab. And they were in contact with ground-based communications, and which was right in the middle of Hurricane Harvey. Researcher Sarah Wallace was on the ground at the Johnson Space Center in Houston and provided support and coaching throughout the endeavor, which was almost stopped due to the storm. But the Marshall Space Flight Center in Alabama successfully connected Wallace to Whitson via cell phone when communication at the Johnson Space Center was inhibited. Okay, so they then helped analyze and ID what the samples were. Eventually, the samples made it back to Earth, where researchers verified that the results determined in space were in fact accurate. We did it. Everything worked perfectly, said microbiologist and researcher Sarah Stahl. Okay. What I want to know is, what are these unknown microbes? They won't tell us, please. Come on. They're unknown, and then they brought them back from space to here. Area 54. You just know it. Alex Jones will tell you. And I'm sure he will. But today we're going to have to leave it at that, because we will be back tomorrow for Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. That's right. And so do tune in for that. And we'll have the cafe all ready for your enjoyment then. Stay tuned and listen to our Netroots Radio throughout the day. In fact, 24/7, 365. And you'll enjoy it. There's lots there. And we will visit with you tomorrow here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, 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 dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, 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 dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver, dans mon jardin d'hiver.